Hi everyone, welcome to my little corner. My name is Dave Brown, and I'm a student currently at Drexel University studying in the Masters of Library and Information Science program. So I wanted to give you guys a reflection or a recap on what's happening and, you know, where I'm at in the collection, what I'm learning. There's a lot of things that we have to go over today, so let's get started. So, the first thing I want to say is I stand by information as everyone's right. Everyone has a right to information. They have a right to share it. They have a right to search for it. Um, and everyone should have access to it. So, it should be a fair process. For this capstone, I focused on the open access digital theological library repository and working with them. I've learned so much. So for this capstone, I focused on um, two outside digital repositories, the Notre Dame University and the Michigan University, and actually matching their content to the repository of the open access theological library. That is say 5 times fast, okay? It's funny. Um, so I wanted to focus on the Notre Dame first. The Notre Dame library is focusing on dissertations of religion and different types. It could be anything. And so my job was to basically create a collection. I love that word. Creating a collection and inserting it using the OCLC number. So the OCLC number, we're going to get back to that, but a really quick study is that it's a number that allows us to make information discoverable. So keep that in mind. Discoverable is very important because that's going to lead us into Michigan University and why discoverability is important. So, in focusing on these two digital repositories, I was able to understand how data structures are represented in the in the open access theological library. Say that 5 times fast, okay? And I was learning how information is represented, how logical relationships are made, and how elements of information transferred into data. Um, and that was important because some of the steps that we used is I had to understand URLs. URLs are basically the little tab in the search button that you type in when you're looking for something. Google has it automatically, but in your little search tab, when you type in an item, a name, or anything, it can basically, it has a URL. Now, it could be stable or unstable. If it's unstable, it will not work. And that's really what's important here. So, for the Notre Dame University, my job there was to search for content, search the content provider, which is Notre Dame, and find dissertations that are viewable documents that can be added to the open access theological library. I'm sorry, but it's just such a mouthful to say. I'm just going to say theological library, okay? Because it's so much. But open access is so important too, and I feel like adding it is so important. But so for adding and creating a collection using the content provider of Notre Dame, my job was to A, find the document that was viewable. If it had open access, my job was to make sure to click on the link, make sure the link worked, make sure the link was open access because some of the documentation says it's open access and then it wasn't. 2, create a content collection through metadata. So the metadata is basically I'm creating a collection, I'm making sure all of the content provider has all of the information and that the information is connected through the OCLC. Then I have to go to WorldShare. WorldShare, I had to search for the title. Then I had to copy the OCLC number That's important because it makes the information discoverable. And then I had to add the OCLC number, which will auto-populate to the metadata. And in that source, it would basically go into the collection, and then it was rinse and repeat. So I did that for 193 items out of close to 500. That meant that I was searching through content. That means I was looking through the contents and viewable documents. I was taking notes. I was trying to understand if the information was stable. Sometimes it wasn't. And I had to just learn how, okay, we move on, we keep it moving, and so forth. So that was really important there. In learning that, I was able to curate and troubleshoot stable URL content. This is important. And I go back to this because information has to be edited by a human to be made discoverable. And information and machines aren't ready like that, so it still needs a human touch to add the OCLC number. But this leads us into Michigan University, and editing over 1,000 content. That is still ongoing, but this information is a little bit different. It's a little bit easier, but it's still time consuming because you have to go through, and again, you're editing through and seeing if the bot, the machine that added the information, because the content was already there, it was already in the library. I was just editing, making sure that the OCLC was there so that the information was discoverable, and if it needed a title, I would add it. It wasn't oftentimes. And this was 1,000 plus items, and it's still ongoing, and I don't think I'll finish it, by the time I'm uploading this. But what I've learned is content that sits in the theological library, it sits in limbo because it has no OCLC number. That means it's not discoverable. That means it's there. The data process needs to be continued and edited. That means that I have to go through each content, check their OCLC number. Sometimes I can check WorldShare and just type in the title in just to see if it's discoverable or not. That's not one of the steps that needs to be had, but it was helpful for me because I was able to have something to search for besides the OCLC number. I also learned that information management retrieval systems require human editing and human understanding. So what does that mean? That means that we have to understand controlled vocabularies. We have to understand metadata. We have to understand what the data is doing. We have to understand the life cycle of the data. We have to understand what processes the content has gone through so that we can edit the content and then process the content into a discoverable object content. And that's important because what I'm learning in this is that through curating the information and focusing on these two repositories, I learned two unique perspectives that A, allowed me to create a collection, B, allowed me also to edit the collection, but also understand machine elements that went into adding a collection without a human touch. And I also focused on how the digital content, and the knowledge base is so vast, but while it's vast, you can make it manageable through human understanding by breaking down, okay, I can search through title, I can search through author, I can search through the collection in certain ways that breaks it down to be a manageable number. I was able to utilize the Notre Dame editing and creating a collection by doing 25 a day. And that was just me sitting there looking at the content, seeing what the content is doing, and then just looking and seeing if the content can be added to the collection. And if it could be added to the collection, I would add it. And if it couldn't, if it wasn't open access and the dissertation didn't work, I moved on. So it was always trying to understand what was needed for creating my collection. It was always understanding where my collection was. It was always understanding what my collection was doing. And the main thing is basically curating the collection so that it was discoverable. Once it was discoverable, move on. But it can also be said that it can be edited further, but using the OCLC makes all of the information discoverable. So I learned a lot. I really did. I learned a lot. It's ongoing. I'm hoping to continue this, because I enjoy metadata. I enjoy what I'm learning, and, human-computer interaction combined with metadata, combined with learning, how humans interact with data and the knowledge base, and machine generation and human generation, and just understanding that dumb phones are dumb. They're only as smart as the people who can use them. So I utilized that same concept. I had to be smart. I had to be knowledgeable. I had to be a human and translate the information so that it could be made to be understood. I learned a lot. I really did. I learned a lot. I had a lot of fun curating and creating my collection, and it was like having a milestone after milestone after milestone. It was just like, it was really great reaching milestone, having objectives. And I think that's really important for me during this project because I was able to have a checklist essentially. Drexel really makes you step outside of your comfort zone to find what you like. And I found I loved learning ontology using the metadata. I loved learning controlled vocabulary for me as a human, because controlled vocabulary is for human and ontology is for machine learning. So I learned those concepts, and while I learned those concepts, it was important to understand why they were important. And I was able to have a quality of evaluation. I was able to understand what the data was doing and how I was creating it. I know this video has gone on long, but I don't know, I had fun. And, that's, it's one of the things that Drexel does. Drexel, they want you to learn, but they also want you to step outside your boundaries, and they want you to see what you can do. And Drexel has done that for me. This semester has done it for me, learning all of the things I've learned and what I've built. So I hope to continue to be building collections and databases and editing them and learning, more about metadata. And I hope to see you out there, future librarians, and please stay safe. And I thank you all. You have a good one. Thank you guys. We did it. We're almost done. Drexel, Capstone Class 2. We did it. We're awesome. Bye.